take a look at these first musical examples in our Mel Bay Book 1. First notes you're going to learn about are the notes on the high E string. It's generally the easiest to reach. It's a good place to start. It's a good place to read. If you don't know how to read music and you're actually in this book to try and help yourself learn how to read music, then some of the tips I'm going to say right now will be very beneficial into making reading easier. There is on the previous page, if we go back real quick and look at page 4, goes over the basic notes on the staff. There are 5 lines, there are 4 spaces on our G clef staff. And the lines represent from lowest pitch to highest pitch on the staff. E, G, B, D, F, commonly referred to as every guitarist begins doing fine, every good boy does fine, E, G, B, D, F. Then you have the 4 spaces, which are also represent notes. If the note is written in that space, then you have F, A, C, E, face. That's generally the easiest one to remember and kind of correlate from there. So with that, we know that, or we're learning that, whole notes, which is big circle and open, no stem, 4 beats. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Half note, open, but does have a stem, 2 beats. That'll get a count of 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Quarter note, as you can imagine, we're doing basic geometry. It's going to get 1 beat. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then 8th note, which is going to be probably the smallest note or the fastest note that we deal with in this piece, gets half a beat. Now how do you count half a beat? Well, you divide it. Instead of counting 1, 2, 3, 4, we go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. So that's how we do our basic counting. Now there are rests that coincide. Silence in music is as important as the notes you play and how long you let them out for. So if you look on the page of the rest, you can see there's a half rest, a whole rest, a quarter rest, an 8th rest. You'll count them the same way that you count the actual notes, but you will be silent. You won't play anything. And then it goes over basic time signatures, 4, 4, 3, 4, 2, 4. We'll dig into that deeper as we play and it'll make more sense. So right now, let's look on page 7, which says notes on the E string. And it has a nice diagram, and you see a note sitting up there, F-A-C-E. There's our high E. So, that's just the open string. There we go. The next thing we see, F, on the very top line. Every good boy does fine. There's our F. We play that with the first finger on the first fret of the high E string. And the last note we're going to learn on this page is G. That's actually in a space above the staff. We play that with our third finger on the high E string on the 3rd fret. So E, F, G. Now with that, I'm going to play through this page. First thing we're going to do is play some whole notes. And whole notes are great for building up strength. It sounds boring, it's not the most musical thing in the world, but it helps you to develop some strength, because if you can hold that, that's music breathing. You think about listening to a singer belting out that high note. They're holding a note, they're not doing anything real fancy. The same thing with guitar players. You hear them do a fast run, and then they always hold a note for a second. So strength to sustain a tone is very important. So we're going to start with, and ideally, when you play this, you're going to count and say the names of the notes. This helps lock in the information. It reinforces it. And initially it will seem weird, especially if you're home practicing around other people and they're like, what are you doing? Don't be intimidated. This is a very important part of the practice. And this will help with your counting and your rhythm. Very important in music. You don't have rhythm, you really can't dance, and it's going to be difficult to play. You need to be able to have some rhythm. And the other thing is, learning to read music is one of the most difficult things in the world. It doesn't make a lot of sense. It's this tiny little symbol that's giving you a lot of information, telling you what pitch to play, it's telling you how long to play that pitch for. It will give you some dynamic reference and many other things. So take the time to do this. I guarantee you it will pay off. So, this first line, we have whole notes. So we say the E, and then we count 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to play this first line. We have E, 2, 3, 4, E, 2, 3, 4, F, 2, 3, 4, F, 2, 3, 4, G, 2, 3, 4, G, 2, 3, 4, F, 2, 3, 4, F, 2, 3, 4. And then you stop, because that's where the line ends. Now, the next one, we have half notes. 2 beats. So this would go E2, E4, G2, G4, F2, F4, F2, 4. We have a rest there. We don't play there. Silence is important. Finally, we have quarter notes. E, E, F, F, G, G, E, E, F, F, G, G, F, F, E, rest. So that's what our first page should sound like. Practice it slowly. This will give you a basic reference. Try and get the notes under your fingers. Don't be afraid to look at the fingerboard. You're not used to doing this. There's nothing wrong with looking at the fingerboard. I encourage it. And we're going to look at page 8 now, which has what's called a first string etude, and mixes things up a little bit. We have some quarter notes and we have some half notes. Throughout the page, we're going to play these. So, this first one, first string etude, it's actually 8 bars. You're not going to stop there because there's no double line or heavy bar line signifying the end of the piece. So, E, 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 F, G, E, G, 4, F, 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 4, E, 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 4, E, E, F, G, E, G, 4, F, F, G, G, E, E. We'll do that one more time. E, 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 F, G, E, G, 4, F, 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 E, 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 4, E, 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 F, G, E, G, 4, F, F, G, G, E, 2, E, 4. Sometimes I run out of breath. But keep counting, keep your foot going if you can. Etude number 2. E, F, G, E, F, G, E, 4, F, 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 4, G, F, E, 4, E, E, G, E, F, G, E, 4, G, F, E, G, E, 2, E, 4. One more time. E, F, G, E, F, G, E, 4, F, 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 4, G, F, E, 4, E, E, G, E, F, G, E, 4, G, F, E, G, E, 2, E, 4. And finally, we have on this page the Mix Master. This is going to give us some various rests. It's going to give us all the notes that we've learned so far, all the different types of notes we've learned so far. So this will be the big challenge. G, 2, 3, 4, F, 2, F, 4, E, 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 G, 2, 3, 4, F, 2, 3, 4, F, 2, F, 4, E, 2, 3, 4, rest. And at the bottom there it tells you to write in those notes, which you'll have to do on your own. I can't do that for you. So take this, practice this. This is your first lesson in Mel Bay Book 1.